Good morning, students. Today, in this class, we will discuss taxonomy and biodiversity. This is the topic of Unit 1. We will start Unit 1, Class 11th. The living world. So, in this living world, we will study the diversity of life, and it will be clear by two terms what is our motive to study in this chapter. That two terms are biodiversity and taxonomy. Biodiversity is the abbreviated form of biological diversity. Bios means life. Life is an entity. Life is an entity. Which have a mechanism to minimize its entropy. Life is an entity which can be felt only, and it has a mechanism to minimize its entropy by performing life processes. On earth, there are diverse forms of life. Even in your household, there are so many forms of life which you confront, which you faces, which you see in your day-to-day life. You can easily see cockroaches, cats, dogs, cows, buffaloes, dog, several type of mosquitoes and other insects, mites, termites on the door. Even on your body, there are several microorganisms. Several species of microorganisms are present on your body. When you take bath, even then, there are so many microorganisms on your body. As much microorganisms are on your body, as much human population is on earth. Even after taking bath, the dew present in your hairs, on your head, the dandruffs present on your head are all forms of life. Thousands of microorganisms are present inside your body, and they are in a symbiotic association with you. They are helping you in many ways. They are helping you in digestion. There are more than thousands of microbes are present in your large intestine. Escherichia coli, Giardia gambians. So, the world of living forms, the world of life is diverse, uncountable. Only we can make estimation. This earth is full of life, diverse forms of life. The major divisions, the major classification of life form in the form of kingdom, we know that is plant, that is animal, that is monera, bacteria, protista, fungi. But in that divisions also there are diverse forms, uncountable forms. You can see the flowering plants. Only flowering plants on the earth is the dominant division or kingdom, division of the kingdom Plantae. There are more than 3 lakh, approx 4 lakh species of plants documented only, not all. We know more than 3 lakh flowering plant species. The phylum Arthropoda is the most diverse phylum on the earth. 60 to 70% of species, total species, belongs to this phylum, Arthropoda. So, biological diversity term was first used by Thomas J. Walter. Biological diversity was first used by Thomas J. Walter. It was abbreviated as biodiversity for the first time in scientific journal by W. G. Rosen. W. G. Rosen abbreviated it as biodiversity in scientific journals and scientific community by W. G. Rosen. Then one name comes E. Wilson. Edward Wilson is known for making this term popular in scientific community. E. Wilson has done a remarkable job in the field of biodiversity. They studied biodiversity, they categorized the study of biodiversity on 3 levels: genetic level, species level, and ecological level. So, Thomas J. Walter used the term biological diversity, W. G. Rosen used the term biodiversity for the first time in scientific community, and E. Wilson popularized this term by their study and categorization of biodiversity study at 3 levels: species level, genetic level, on the level of genes, on the level of species, and on the level of ecology. So now we will describe biodiversity. What is biodiversity? So the diverse form of life on earth, you can see there are a community, plant community, which do not change its position. It is known as Padak in Sanskrit. Padak means one who feeds or get nutrition through food. There is one more term in Sanskrit known as Thavar. That means those who does not change their position. The plant community. Even in plant community there are 5 broad categories in which Thallophyta comes. Thallophyta, which does not have a body differentiation. Then Bryophyta. It has a body differentiation, but the dominant phase is gametophytic phase. Even the root and stem and leaf are not true in Bryophyta. Then came another category which is called pteridophytes, in which for the first time vascular system evolved, which is also known as steger evolution in plant. Then one more advanced group is there, which is called gymnosperm, in which seed nature evolved for the first time. But in that, seed was unprotected. The ovule was unprotected. The megasporangium was unprotected. There was no ovary wall over there. Then came another division. It evolved from the gymnosperm, and that is known as angiosperm, the flowering plant. So there is 5 massive categorization of the plant kingdom. Even in that categorization, there are several. Even only in flowering plant, there are more than 4 lakh species of flowering plant. We have documented more than 3 lakh species of flowering plant. Yet many has to be discovered. Many has to be documented. So apart from plant community, when you will see the animal kingdom, even in that animal kingdom, there are diverse forms of life. They are broadly divided into chordates and non-chordates. Even in chordates, their division protochordate, hemichordate, cephalochordate. Then in chordate there is a division called vertebrata. Even in that vertebrata there are divisions in which we divide them on the basis of presence of jaws, gnathostoma. Then we divide them on the basis of evolution of links. Tetrapods are there and pieces are there as super classes. Even in that pieces, some pieces are bony pieces and some are cartilaginous pieces. In tetrapods there are several classes like amphibia, reptilia, apes and mammalia. Even in that mammalia there are several orders, several types of orders are there. Carnivora is there, herbivora is there. There may be several orders like primata is there, in which human beings comes. So there is diverse form of life on earth. They differ in their habitat. That was the discussion of plant and animal only. We know about a huge group of microorganisms also exist on this earth. They are categorized as bacteria. They are categorized as fungi. They are categorized as algae. They are categorized as protozoans. Even in Monera, we have 2 separate phylums for eubacteria and archaebacteria. Even in Protista, we have some groups which have animal-like character, we have some group which have plant-like character, some group have fungi-like characters. In animal kingdom, some runs very fast, known as cursorial. Some runs very slow, like turtle. Some has creeping movement on earth. Some lives in burrowing. Some lives on the tree. Some swims in the water. Some lives in the water but lays egg outside. Water is necessary for the fertilization for some life forms. So we can say there are diverse. Some life forms are parasites. They obtain food and space on some another organism. They may be ectoparasite. They may be endoparasites. And the life forms are not only diverse, they are diverse form of the habitat also in which they live. Some lives in the polar region, some lives in the water, some lives in oceanic water, some lives in fresh water, some lives in backwater, some lives in stagnant water, some lives in flowing water. some can fly, some can creep on the ground, some can walk, some can run, some can obtain food from another, some can make their own organic food from inorganic constituents. Some are saprobes, some are decomposers, some are fructivorous, some are insectivorous, some are sanguivorous, some are caprophilous, some are herbivorous, some are carnivorous, some are omnivorous. So, the tremendous forms of life on earth, tremendous, uncountable, having different habits. Habit means some are seasonal, some are annual, some are biennial. In case of animals, some may be nocturnal, some may be diurnal. क्रिएचर निशाचर, ये हैबिट है. जीव क्या है? निशाचर है. कहने का क्या मतलब? वो रात में विचरण करता है, तो ये उसका हैबिट है. इवन इन बर्ड, some lives on tree, some lives in bushes, some can fly, some cannot, some can swim, some cannot, other cannot. So tremendous form of life on earth, having different habitat, nutritional pattern, biological processes, appearances, shape, size and colors. All this life form, diverse life form, constitute biodiversity on earth. So, write down the definition of biodiversity. Tremendous. Tremendous. Forms of life on earth, having survival by diverse habitats, biological processes, nutritional processes, appearances, lifestyle, shape, size, in bracket morphology, behavior, constitute biodiversity. So, tremendous form of life having survival by diverse habitat, nutritional pattern, biological processes constitute biodiversity on earth. Now, significance of biodiversity. what is the significance of biodiversity? We will see it one by one. Significance. From where our food comes from? What do we eat? The source of our food is either plant or animal. Importance number one, our food. Our food either comes from plant source and animal source, and both are the part of biodiversity. You eat curd, idli, dosa. In all these things, fermentation is required. Who does this fermentation do? Who do these processes? These processes are done by microorganisms. So even microorganisms are the part of biodiversity. Plants, animals die and their body gets decomposed. Who do that? Microbes, decomposers, saprobes. So, food is our basic need, and for that we are dependent upon biodiversity. Second point. From where our clothes come from? It comes from cotton, it comes from jute, it comes from the fiber which we obtain from sheep. Woolen cloths comes from where the wool comes from. You know very well. So the source of our clothes is also biodiversity. So our basic things, our houses are made up of wooden furniture. That is also the part of biodiversity. The bricks are made up of soil. Who do the work of soil conservation? The roots of the plant. So, houses and house accessories all comes from biodiversity. So, our basic need, food, clothes and houses, roti, kapra और मकान, कहाँ से आता है? Biodiversity से आता है. तो ये significant है, महत्व रखता है हमारे लिए. Even apart from these basic needs, there are also some needs like medicine. Fourth one is medicine. From where the medicine comes from? We obtain it as drug from the plants. We use antibiotics. Antibiotics are obtained from microorganisms, bacteria, fungi. So our medicine also comes from biodiversity. Then the next point. The services which nature provide us, like raindrops, precipitation, snowfall. In all these things, the forest play a very important role in formation of cloud by the process of transpiration. The biodiversity or the forest is involved in the process of soil conservation. The roots of the plant hold the soil tightly and conserve it from erosion. So it prevents soil erosion. It purifies the groundwater. It stores water. So, biodiversity is necessary for ecological services. So now you can understand the importance of biodiversity in our day-to-day life. Next thing is, what is the status of biodiversity? Then biodiversity is degrading day by day. This biodiversity is degrading. Day by day. For that, what will we have to do? Because it is very significant for us. Biodiversity is very necessary for us. How will we conserve it? For that, we will have to know the entire biodiversity. So, we will have to focus upon the magnitude of biodiversity. Topic is magnitude of biodiversity. मैग्नीट्यूड का मतलब होता है परिमाण. बायोडाइवर्सिटी को हम कैसे मेजर करेंगे? If we have to secure someone, if we have to provide security, तो किसी व्यक्ति को सिक्योरिटी देना है तो क्या हम उसके आधे को सिक्योरिटी देंगे, उसके एक हाथ एक पैर और एक आंख को सिक्योरिटी? नहीं, पूरे बॉडी को सिक्योर करना होगा. तो बायोडाइवर्सिटी को सिक्योर करने का मतलब है कि एक दो प्लांट को नहीं या अपने जरूरत के प्लांट को नहीं, बल्कि पूरे बायोडाइवर्सिटी की सुरक्षा से ही हमारे सोर्स की भी सुरक्षा होगी. तो बायोडाइवर्सिटी को पूरी तरीके से जानना होगा. वी विल हैव टू नो द बायोडाइवर्सिटी इन इट्स कंप्लीट फॉर्म, नॉट इन पीसेस, नॉट इन इंस्टॉलमेंट. तो एज ए होल we will have to know the biodiversity. We will have to study the magnitude. How big is it? So, according to Hindu mythology and Garuda Purana, there are 8.4 Garuda Purana. Says that there are 8.4 billion life forms on Earth. 8.4 billion. According to a scientific estimation, it is around 8.7 billion. Another scientific estimation says it is around 10 to 12 billion. So huge is the biodiversity. But if it is 10 million only, then we have not documented more than 2 million life forms on Earth. That means 80% of biodiversity is unknown to us. We do not know about 80% of biodiversity. Even this 10 million is just 1 to 2% of the total biodiversity ever existed on Earth. बहुत सारे जीव जो है वो विलुप्त हो गए. अगर सारे जीवों को हम कंसीडर करें तो आज की बायोडाइवर्सिटी सिर्फ 1 से 2%. That means even that number is not very big. If we will consider all the life forms which ever existed on Earth, it is very a smaller magnitude. So, in the process of conservation of biodiversity, we will have to study biodiversity. We will have to classify them in major form we will have to deduce the method of identification and nomenclature to each life form. And for that, a branch of science is involved, and that is taxonomy. So now I think it is clear before you why I have started this chapter with these two terms, biodiversity and taxonomy. Biodiversity means the living world, and taxonomy is the branch of science which deals with identification, classification and nomenclature of life form in present and past on this earth. तो अगर बायोडाइवर्सिटी हमारे लिए इम्पोर्टेंट है, if biodiversity is important for us, if biodiversity is significant for us, if its conservation is necessary, then the best way to conserve it to study taxonomy and practice taxonomy. But because without knowing the biodiversity, we cannot understand the taxonomy. So we just define taxonomy. What is taxonomy? The branch of biological science which deals with identification, classification and nomenclature of life forms on Earth ever. So I think you all have understood the relationship between biodiversity and taxonomy. Biodiversity is the living world and taxonomy is the branch of science which deals with identification, classification and nomenclature of life form. And taxonomy is the tool to conserve biodiversity. Taxonomy is a very important and essential tool for the conservation of biodiversity. There are two modes of conservation of biodiversity: in situ conservation and ex situ conservation. In situ conservation means conserving the life form in their natural habitat, in their natural home. And ex situ means conserving them in captivity, like zoo, like botanical garden, like zoological park. So, we will study taxonomy in detail. Our purpose to access the living world through taxonomy is to conserve biodiversity. So, I conclude this topic here by getting assured that you have understood the relationship between biodiversity and taxonomy. Taxonomy is the oldest profession of the world. The day man started gathering food and identifying it, that in which season it appears and on which plant this fruit will be appear, which is beneficial for the body and not, the day taxonomy started. And that's why we say taxonomy is the oldest profession of the world. So, in next class, we will study taxonomy in detail. We will see the history of taxonomy. We will study the methods of identification and classification and nomenclature of life form under the topic taxonomy. This was the first class of 11th of unit the living world. Okay, this is the first class for class 11th bio, the first unit the living world, and in that living world we have started with two terms, biodiversity and taxonomy. Whatever things or part of this class is not understood, please contact me on my WhatsApp number. Okay? In next class we will study taxonomy in detail. Till then, stay at home, stay safe.